Donald Trump faces potentially many years in prison if convicted for these serious federal crimes because special counsel Jack Smith took a step that no other prosecutor had ever done. And while now, a week and a half into it, people may feel this is just one more thing that's happened, we have to remember that there was no guarantee, quite the opposite, that Smith or the DOJ would ever actually indict a former president. Smith came into this relatively late. The investigations had been going, both on the documents and the coup, when Attorney General tapped him to take over these cases. Now, today, I can tell you we have something we didn't have before, and it's pretty fascinating. If you've been on your phone or watching MSNBC, you may have heard about it. The Washington Post has really blessed everyone who's followed any of these accountability issues with the most thorough inside account of what has been taking so long, a theme that, if you watch the news, you may have heard us discuss on this channel, and, well, a lot of legal experts have talked about it. The DOJ is usually kind of a black box, but the Washington Post has not only peeled back layers, but really exposed some brand new details. Some of it fascinating, interesting, some of it speaks to accountability, and some of it makes some people look, well, less than up to the job. So this is one of those blockbusters with great detail. The headline is the FBI, which of course is part of the DOJ, but operates often on its own. The FBI resisted opening probe into Trump's role on January 6th for more than a year. The investigation, for example, of the electors scheme took 15 months to get going. 15 months after January 6th, when, of course, we'd already learned within far sooner than 15 months that January 6th was going to be when they slammed those fraudulent electors through the Congress to try to create a pretext to steal the race. The Post goes through internal documents, handwritten notes, and interviews with what they say are dozens of people directly involved. And you see through this, not only the DOJ's sort of thought process, but sometimes a kind of a groupthink among senior leaders, which can stoke fear, inaction, a fixation on what the perception of something would be. They don't want to be accused of politics. And the DOJ, as we know, tries to be tight-lipped about all of this. We usually only hear these kind of sweeping, even generic statements like this after Jan 6.
In 6 days, we have opened over 160 case files, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We are looking at all angles here. We're interviewing everyone, interviewing witnesses and interviewing subjects as they get arrested around the country, using our tools at our disposal to find and bring everyone involved in last week's criminal activity to justice.
On the one hand, that's partly what they were doing, talking to a lot of people, going after justice. On the other hand, it wasn't the whole story. Indeed, there were people they avoided talking to, sometimes wasting time leads even the freshness of evidence. And there was, according to the Washington Post, a block on whether they ever looked at Trump. The Post writes about a wariness, about appearing partisan, and then internal strife, that this fear basically chilled efforts to investigate former President Trump. The AG and Deputy AG charted a, quote, cautious course aimed at restoring public trust, but prosecutors chafed, feeling top officials were shying away from looking at the evidence of potential crimes by Trump. One official telling the Post a decision was made early on to focus DOJ resources on the, quote, riot. We'll come back to that because it wasn't just a random riot, but, quote, riot. The notion of opening up on Trump and high-level political operatives was seen as fraught with peril. End quote. This is, and you've heard me use this word before, very James Comey-esque. When instead of just doing the thing, before doing the thing, you are fixating, obsessing, and sitting around at work talking about whether the thing might be interpreted as political. And by the way, it shouldn't be political. They should never go after anyone, including Donald Trump, because of a political disagreement or what he was like as a politician. But to not look at every piece of evidence, including Donald Trump's obvious public role in summoning the mob, in fanning the flames of the insurrection, in then defending the people who did it afterward, if all of that wasn't going to be looked at because of optics, well, you're already in the hole. And look at this quote. For many months after the attack, prosecutors did not interview White House aides or other key witnesses, according to the authorities and attorneys. In that time, communications were put at risk of being lost or deleted, and memories left to fade. That's what I mentioned about the freshness of evidence. So a lot of this may sound somewhat familiar. You're going, Ari, I think I heard they were delayed. I think I saw January 6 hearings that were ahead of DOJ. What Washington Post has done here, though, and a credit to the original reporting, is really back that up with meticulous detail. Some of the anonymous lines are necessary. You have anonymous reporting, but they also have names, dates, facts. Now, what they did do at DOJ during that time while they were backing off Trump and the political leaders was prosecute the people who were on site at the Capitol. They also, though, were, according to the Post, shooting down requests to build on those prosecutions. Then there was external pressure. The January 6th committee, as I mentioned, was, of course, a key part of that. There were independent accounts in papers like The Post, The Times, reporting on MSNBC and other outlets. Basically, you had, quote, new reports surfacing of the Trump team's Willard Hotel Command Center, as The Post explained, and the role of that in overturning the results. You had the evidence of the coup plot. You had those criminal referrals at the end of the Jan 6 probe. And the Jan 6 committee's view that one person was responsible, Donald Trump. You may recall, if you happen to watch this program regularly, that we did a whole special report on what we called at the time the coup conspiracy, looking at the evidence of how there were these multiple arrows I've told you about. The Post noted MSNBC's coverage by Rachel Maddow, who was way ahead of the curve, and also reporting on the elector fraud plot, which was one of those arrows. So a lot of this was actually circulating from many different accounts, from sources, from journalists, and apparently the Post says some of that did put extra pressure on DOJ to really rethink leads that reportedly they had dropped months past. Here's some of our coverage. Trump's plot to overthrow the election was far broader than one day.
Actually sending the National Archives and Congress a forged document where they pretended to be the state's real electors when they were not.
It was an illegal coup conspiracy starting before the election and lasting months.
This would therefore appear to be some kind of a coordinated effort.
Taken together, you have the evidence of this wider criminal conspiracy.
Who coordinated this effort?
Rachel was right. The Post and the facts bear that out, both in the pressure and the attention she was putting on aspects of those plots, which far, far predated a, quote, riot on January 6th, and she was right to ask the questions. Now, there are many different factors here. I want to be crystal clear. The Post doesn't have an A to B on exactly what led to what, but they have a larger theme that things were left aside, afraid of looking political, afraid of going after Trump, and later, after Garland taps Jack Smith, well, you see a shift. And now, of course, we have some of the hindsight. Jack Smith, for months, was heading towards indicting Trump. He had the goods and the evidence. He knew it was a possibility or a likelihood at that point. We couldn't say. We're also seeing indications that he continues to be more assertive on January 6th than the original Merrick Garland game plan that the Post and others have reported on. Now, like the documents case, any charging decision also still has to run through the oversight of the Attorney General. And we know that he started out reluctant, according to the Post and our own reporting, our own observations, early on. So what we have today that, quite frankly, we didn't have a couple days ago is a lot more detail, heft, nuance, and texture of what was going on inside the DOJ and the FBI and how past attacks, debates, professional traumas over what is or not political may have actually clouded the judgment of people who were, by their own statements, tasked with investigating the greatest physical, violent attack on our democracy by domestic terrorists and seditionists in our nation's history.